The following audio may contain the personal testimonials of some Optavia coaches or clients of Optavia. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the Optavia team.
I'm so excited to be the host of the Habits of Health webinar tonight. My name is Dr. Delia Garcia. I am an oncologist by background and training, and my specialty is breast cancer. But I'm also a certified Optavia coach, and that is something that I'm extremely proud of. So my topic tonight is how to reduce the risk of breast cancer, how to reduce breast cancer with diet and lifestyle. And there are so many things that we can do, very simple things to reduce our risk, not only of breast cancer, but of the other disease killers as well. Heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. So here we go. So I'm going to start with the scope of the problem. We're going to cover risk factors for breast cancer. I'm going to talk about early detection. We're going to talk about overweight and obesity being a risk factor for breast cancer. I'm going to cover a little bit of information on how important sleep is. And I'm going to end with our food and our lifestyle as huge preventative factors. So as I mentioned, I'm an oncologist with a specialty in breast cancer, and I practiced for 30 years, loved every minute of it. But what happened as I was in practice longer is I kept seeing younger and younger women with breast cancer. Women that were in their 40s, 30s, 20s. I even had a 17-year-old that came in one day with her mom and dad to discuss her breast cancer treatment options. And there's nothing normal about having a teenager with breast cancer. So that made me hyper aware of the fact that diet and lifestyle and other factors were so important in helping these women truly get themselves well. It wasn't just about the surgery and the chemotherapy and the radiation. It was so much more than that. So if we look at the scope of the problem, breast cancer is the leading cause of death among American women. The number one cause of death in American women is heart disease. So in 2017, there were over 250,000 new cases of breast cancer diagnosed. And breast cancer is responsible for about 40,000 deaths each year. So as you can see from the numbers, 252,000 new cases, 40,000 deaths. Most of the women with breast cancer are cured of their disease. They go through treatment and they go on to live long, productive lives. And this is a cancer that is rare in men. In the 30 years that I practice, the number of men that I saw with breast cancer, I can count on one hand, but it can happen. So we need to be hyper aware of that. What about breast cancer worldwide? It is the most common cancer throughout the world. 1.7 million new cases of breast cancer are diagnosed each and every year. It's also the leading cause of cancer death in underdeveloped countries. So worldwide, about 500,000 people, 500,000 women die each and every year. Breast cancers are diagnosed at a more advanced stage in the poorer countries, the less developed countries. They're more curable in developed countries such as the United States and Europe. The good news, however, is that the American Cancer Society reports that the number of women who died from breast cancer dropped about 40% in the last 25 years. So because we're more aware of the disease, because we're diagnosing it at an early stage in time, the death rates have dropped. And in the United States, the average 5-year survival rate for women with breast cancer is 90%. So most women are cured of their disease. And even those that are not cured, who develop metastatic disease sometime in the span of their cancer journey, can live for many years. I had one patient with liver metastases spread to her liver that lived more than 20 years. And she had a very wonderful life. She played the violin in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a death sentence, even if it has spread to bone or other sites. So let's look at overweight and obesity as a risk factor for breast cancer, because it's a huge risk factor. So women that are overweight, by that I mean a body mass index of 25, between 25 and 30, are 1.5 times at greater risk of developing breast cancer than a woman who is at a normal weight, a body mass index of 24 or less. If a woman is obese, a body mass index of 30 or above, then her risk of developing breast cancer is 2 times higher than the normal population. Now, I have done a lot of public speaking over the years, and I love being out and about, helping women learn about this topic of reducing their risk of breast cancer. And oftentimes I hear women say, well, you know, I'm preventing breast cancer because I get my mammogram every year. But I want to make it clear, a yearly mammogram is not prevention of breast cancer. It is early detection. So by having a mammogram on a regular basis, the cancers are diagnosed when they're smaller, when they're less apt to have positive lymph nodes, and thus when they are more curable. So a mammogram can be very beneficial. The mandates for mammography have changed, so make sure and talk to your primary care physician or your OBGYN about what they currently recommend. So what about our genes? You've heard about the BRCA genes, the breast cancer genes. Angelina Jolie was a breast cancer gene carrier, and she ended up having bilateral mastectomies to lower her risk of developing breast cancer. But reality is that only 5% of women who develop breast cancer actually have the breast cancer genes, carry the BRCA1 or BRCA2 or BRCA genes as they're called. So it's not about, in most, the vast majority of women, it's not about our genes, it's about what we do to our genes. So I'll give you an example. If you have a genetic predisposition to cancer and you choose to smoke, then you are turning on those genes, and your probability of developing a smoking-related cancer increased significantly. What would those cancers be? Lung cancer, cancer of the tongue, the oral cavity, pancreas, bladder, for example. But if you choose not to smoke, then you're turning off those genes and you may never develop cancer. So what are some of the other things that can predispose us to cancer and turn genes on or off? Stress, which results in higher cortisol levels, higher insulin levels, the air we breathe, the water we drink, chemicals, pesticides, lots of things in our environment, And very importantly, our food and our lifestyle play a big role of whether those genes are turned on or off. So I'm going to move on to the topic of sleep. And this is a topic that I am immensely excited about, because for years I didn't get enough sleep. You know, when I was working full time and raising children, getting adequate sleep was really an issue for me. So why is sleep so important? It's important because when we're asleep, our body does a tremendous amount of repair. It repairs cells, it repairs tissues, it repairs organ systems and enzymes. So all of these repair mechanisms are happening while we sleep. Also, it's very important to note that our bodies produce a hormone called melatonin, and melatonin peaks between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. It's a hormone that helps to regulate sleep. It makes us sleepy. However, and I wanted to mention too, melatonin is a really important hormone that inhibits tumor growth and tumor development. However, if we don't get enough melatonin, our sleep is just disrupted. All of those repair mechanisms are disrupted, and that inhibition of tumor growth and development is disrupted. And what disrupts that? Light. So if we live in an urban neighborhood where there are bright street lights outside our window, and we don't, shut the shades, or we fall asleep with the television on or with our computer on our laps, then that light disrupts melatonin production. Also, there are published studies showing that night workers, for example, women, or not women, but nurses who work the night shift, have a 30% higher risk of developing breast cancer because of inadequate melatonin production and inadequate sleep and all of those repair mechanisms. So let's talk exercise. And exercise is a really important habit of health. It's a really important habit of health for reducing the risk of breast cancer. So women who exercise have a 30 to 40% lower risk of developing breast cancer than their sedentary peers. And we're talking about moderate exercise, not crazy, 4 hours in the gym type of exercise. We're talking about 3 to 5 hours of exercise a week, enough to break into a sweat. So essentially, if you exercise just 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, or if you exercise 1 hour a day, three times a week, that would be enough to significantly lower your risk of breast cancer. But also, exercise lowers the risk of other chronic diseases as well, heart disease and hypertension. So exercise, hugely important. It's a habit in my own life that I absolutely love. And what exercise should we do? Whatever will get you out there. Riding your bike, a brisk walk, a yoga class. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. So let's move on to diet and the food that we eat. What should we be eating to reduce our risk of breast cancer, other cancers, and other chronic diseases? We should be eating primarily plants. And again, this is a talk about reducing the risk of breast cancer. So I want to clarify that if you are on the weight loss phase of our 5-in-1 program, some of the things on this list you probably should not be eating because they'll be incompatible with fat burn. So the superfoods are fruits and berries and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, other legumes. So important, so many nutrients in these foods, so many antioxidants. And these are foods that can heal the body and again, lower our risk of all of those diseases that I've already mentioned. So if we look, I love this picture. And I love this picture because on the left is a tray, a cafeteria tray from the school where my daughter attended. She attended a private Catholic girls' school here in St. Louis from 7th to 12th grade. And this is a visual of somebody's tray. It wasn't her tray, I'm happy to say. I taught her better than that. But it is someone else's tray. So the unidentified fried things, the French fries, the brownie, the soda, there's nothing nutritious on this tray. No wonder children are sick. No wonder they're prone to ear infections and flu and other things. And then as we get older, we're prone to those chronic diseases. But contrast that to the slide on the right, those vibrant, beautiful colors of fruits and vegetables loaded with nutritious nutrients and things that help to heal our body. I also want to say that myself and another mom who's a registered dietitian, we went into that school when our daughters were attending and we changed up that cafeteria. So the food doesn't, if you call that food, it doesn't look like that today. So let's talk a little bit about alcohol. So with regard to breast cancer, no amount of alcohol is safe, with the exception of, and I'm not going to say that it's safe, but a glass or two of red wine has not been shown to increase the risk of breast cancer, but every other type of alcohol has. So the Harvard Nurses Health Study showed that even one alcoholic drink a day resulted in a small increase in breast cancer. So it wasn't a huge increase, it was a small increase. And again, I want to clarify that alcohol is not allowed on our 5-in-1 weight loss program. But again, be careful of alcohol. So let's get back to our topic, my favorite topic of a whole food plant-based diet. So again, this picture, this beautiful picture of all these vegetables, these vibrant colors that show that these are chock full with all these nutrients that our bodies need. So this was a study of 1,500 women, those that ate 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And what's a serving? A serving is a half a cup of vegetables, a piece of fruit, so it's not like massive amounts. So women that ate 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day and walked 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, reduced their risk of death from breast cancer by 50% at 2 years. So this was this particular study that was published in 2007. So eating fruits and vegetables, walking 30 minutes a day, can we do that? Absolutely. It's nothing difficult. So how do we lower our risk of breast cancer? We want to limit alcohol. I already mentioned that. Eating mostly a whole food plant-based diet, walking 30 minutes a day, and very, very important to not only achieve, but to maintain a normal weight. And if we do those very, very simple things, that equates to a 62% reduction in breast cancer. And these are before and after pictures of my friend, Debbie, who lost 80 pounds, and she has drastically reduced her risk of breast cancer as well as other diseases as well. And I want to make a couple of recommendations. I'm a reader. I raise my children without television, and I have 3 children who absolutely love to read as well. Um, and these are 2 recommendations that I'm going to make to each and every one of you if you want to get started on learning more on how to prevent not only breast cancer, but all of the chronic diseases with our food and our lifestyle. So I'm going to start with the book on the left. The book on the left is titled Healthy at 100. And John Robbins is the author. He's a best-selling author. This is not his only book, but it's one of my favorites. And he covers all the data on plant-based eating. Wonderful summary. And he also features the blue zones around the world. These are populations throughout the world that have almost no chronic disease. They live well into their hundreds. Many of these cultures have never known a single case of cancer, of heart disease, of diabetes. It doesn't exist in these cultures. And if it does exist, you're talking about a fluke, one person. So this is a wonderful book. John Robbins' father and uncle founded Baskin-Robbins, and his dad and uncle died early, young, in their 50s of heart disease. John Robbins followed a different path, very holistic lifestyle and eating. So I love that book. The other book that I recommend is a newer book by my friend Michael Greger. I've heard him speak many times. We've been speakers together at the plant-based nutrition conference that takes place every year. And he is going to be speaking in St. Louis tomorrow evening. But his book is titled How Not to Die. And he has a chapter, he has different chapters in the book: how not to die of hypertension, how not to die of heart disease, how not to die of breast cancer. So the leading killers in our country are each covered with a chapter. So I highly recommend Dr. Greger's book as well. And this is my recipe for a healthy and vibrant life. And it's also kind of a little bit of a bragging slide. This is one of my favorite yoga poses, camel. And, I love yoga. It helps with my mindset. It helps with my breathing. It helps with my flexibility, with balance, core strength. There's so much to yoga. That's a wonderful habit of health. So my recipe for a long and healthy, happy life is to eat good food, move your body. If we don't use it, we lose it. Achieve and maintain a healthy weight, hugely important. Read good books. Maybe turn off the television and your computer. Read good books. There are so many out there. Hang out with positive people. And there's so much data on that. We become the people we hang out with. So if the people you hang out with are unhealthy and negative, that's how we become. Create relationships. There are so many lonely people out there, and they think that connecting on Facebook and social media is a relationship. Human beings need to interact with other human beings. Love freely. That's what we were put on this planet to do, to love one another and to help one another. Adopt a pet. I have 3 cats from various places, and they are my constant companions. I have the door shut right now and one's outside. Otherwise, they follow me around everywhere, and oftentimes they're, plopped on top of my keyboard. And if you're struggling, seek help. We have lots of health coaches on the call tonight, and there are so many people in the world to help. And I'd like to end by thanking everyone for participating in this webinar. And how can we view this recording and other habits of health recordings. You can go to Optavia YouTube and search Habits of Health Zoom calls, and all these wonderful talks come up with the speaker and the topics, and so have at it. And I hope that you found this helpful this evening. Again, thank you so much for being on and participating.
This audio may have contained the personal testimonials of some Optavia coaches or clients of Optavia. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the Optavia team.